Hi, welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. Today I'm chatting with Kaila, host of another parenting podcast, Parent Tell. After being inspired to share her birth and postpartum story with other parents, she realized that her experiences as a kindergarten teacher were the perfect fit for being a podcast host. Now she's inspiring other families to give birth on their own terms and embrace the unexpected throughout their parenting journey. Let's hear from Kaila. Hello. Today I am here with Kaila. Hi, Kaila. How are you?
Hi, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Typical mom morning, kind of mom brain scramble, but here we are, and I'm happy to have you.
Precisely the exact same.
Kaila, you are a host of your own podcast, Parent Tell, and you are doing some pretty cool things in the world of just creating a mama community and a parent community. I'll go ahead and start how I start all my episodes. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and who you were before you became a parent?
I love the way you have phrased that because we have to acknowledge that I am a completely different person now. So right now, well, I guess I was going to say right now, my name is Kaila. That was definitely the same before. That's been my name since the first day of my life. So my name is Kaila. I started the podcast Parent Tell in November of 2020. I was about 6 months postpartum, just shy of 6 months postpartum. So yes, if you do that math correctly, I had my son smack dab in the early pandemic days in May 2020. The worst trauma. And I feel like the podcast was a long time coming, basically since I became pregnant. So back in August of 2019, I was the first of my close friends to become pregnant. We had just moved. My husband used to be active duty Marine Corps, and we had just moved from San Diego to North Carolina. So the culture shock was super real.
Yeah.
For me, I was starting a brand new school year. I used to be a kindergarten teacher. So it was just a whirlwind of outside factors. And then on purpose, I became pregnant. And it was like, great, yay, wonderful. We love this journey. And at the same time, the next, 9 months of my pregnancy, there were so many moments where I was just like very thrown for a loop, in shock, really wasn't ready for all of the emotional and mental changes that I was going to experience. And that's not, not even touching on the physical changes. That's a whole nother thing in itself. So really, the start of Parent Tell happened when I was still pregnant. I just didn't realize it because I just constantly found myself thinking like, why didn't anyone, literally no one told me about this. No one gave me any word of warning. No one actually was honest about pregnancy and their experience. Like, what is going on? So that pattern continued through my whole pregnancy. And then of course the pandemic happened. So my last trimester was just a completely different experience from what I ever could have thought it was going to be. And then I had my son in May 2020, and I, again, postpartum and those early newborn days, exact same vibe of just the entire time it was just a big, holy shit, just what is happening? And I wanted to talk to other people about it because I was like, there's no way I'm the only one who's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What just happened to me?
Yes.
There's no way I'm the only person. And so I was like, all right, this is it. I'm just going to start. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to start this podcast. And I know I'm going to be able to find people who are also what the fuck with me. And yeah, it's been almost 3 years since, and it's going really well. I have taken breaks here and there as I need them. I do this all on my own, as I know you do too. But it's been so nice to really find like-minded people and different thinking people, and to build a community and really find some solidarity and some validation, and also learn about new experiences and hear other people's stories. And that's the whole point of Parent Tell, is to talk about the things that we really should be talking about, but maybe you don't feel comfortable bringing up in conversation, or maybe you are thinking you're the only one experiencing it. So it's been really lovely so far. For me personally, it's just been like such a comfort as I started it when my son was 6 months old. So I was very new. I still consider myself, he's 3.5 now, but I'm still like, I'm new. Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm doing this? Okay. Yeah, it's been really great. But like I said before, pregnancy, I was a kindergarten teacher, or I guess I shouldn't say before pregnancy, before I gave birth to my son, I was a kindergarten teacher for about 5 years. And my husband used to be active duty in the Marine Corps. So I'm originally from Maryland. I moved from Maryland to San Diego. We moved from San Diego to North Carolina. Then we moved from North Carolina to Virginia. And that's where we are now. I know people can't see this, but I'm doing like that head bobbing where you're just like, do, 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 do.
Bebopping all over the place.
Yeah. So that's pretty much me in like a small nutshell.
Yeah, in the teeny tiniest little nutshell. It's so crazy. The similarities. I mean, I'm not military family at all. My in-laws were military, and my partner was raised in a military family. But I was a kindergarten special educator.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. The amount of teachers who I have met through podcasting is wild. And I just love
it. I was a kindergarten special educator. I was an intensive needs special educator. But it's crazy how many educators I've been meeting, just like you said. And I think, I don't know why we're the ones sharing our stories. I would be interested to see if there's some other common thread that sort of ties us all together. But there are so many educators that seem to be like, yeah, I struggled postpartum, and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. Yeah, let's do that. And then we just both started a podcast. And
I think it doesn't seem like it, but I think being a podcast host is kind of similar to being a teacher.
Yeah.
Where like you want to share, but you also want other people to share. You want to provide an inclusive, safe space for yourself and for others. And that's where I feel like, people go to podcasts, maybe not necessarily with the clear intention of like, oh, I'm going to learn something, but you always do. Like that's literally, but even just like conversational podcasts like ours, and just like storytelling podcasts like ours, you are learning something. And so I feel like I can kind of see how a teacher, like the teacher mind or the teacher personality would kind of be like, yeah, like, let me just like, I want to create this space for other people. Cause that's like, that's what we do in our classrooms.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I haven't even had coffee today. Oh,
I know. I was like, you solved the mystery for me. Case closed. So I'm gonna prompt you to dig a little deeper, because you were a kindergarten teacher, but like, what brought you joy? What was something that you were passionate about teaching? Any teacher that goes into, or anybody that goes into teaching is passionate about teaching. But like, what kind of things brought you joy in life?
This is all pre-pregnancy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is so funny, because it's like, I have to think pretty hard. You kind of have to like, hold on. All right. You have to like put yourself in almost in a different mindset. I mean, it really is true. Most people say it feels like it was another life. And I absolutely feel the exact same way. Like, I can remember it's both. And I'm constantly talking about that on Parent Tell, how like it's okay to experience both, where it's like you can't imagine your life without your children. And at the same time, you can picture it so clearly. And you're just like, wow, that's what my life used to be like. But,
and it's okay to miss it.
And it's, yes, 100%. Yeah. It's natural to miss it, because it's change, and change is hard. And you went from having like all the time in the world to sleep, eat, work out, hang out with your friends, more money to spend on whatever you're spending it on, to everything is catered toward, not everything, but almost everything is catered towards your kids. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm like, okay, what did I do for fun? I had fun. I mean, and of course I did. I'm being very sarcastic, but, I taught and up until the 2019-2020 school year. And prior to that, I obviously loved working with kids. I didn't like any of the bullshit that came with teaching.
Same girl, same. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, it was very much, thankfully I had a great mentor teacher who, she was like, you know what, at the end of the day, you close your door and you do what you need to do for your kids. And that was the kind of the mantra I had my entire teaching career, is like, I'm going to smile and nod at you. I will attend the meeting. I will do the thing. And then at the end of the day, absolutely not. No, that's not developmentally appropriate. And I'm going to close my door and teach my children, because these children depend on me. And you, who are, quote, in charge of me, have never worked in a classroom before. So you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Monday through Friday, that's what I was doing. And then my husband and I, before we married, and then when we got married too, super big foodie people. So we went to restaurants a lot. Obviously, living in San Diego, it was, like the food was great. Weather was really nice. So I would say we had a dog. We lived downtown. It was very dink life, double income, no kids. It was like classic dink life, where you're just like, what are we going to do today? And you're like, oh, do you want to go to that urban winery? And we're like, yeah, let's go.
Oh my God. It sounds so lovely.
I know, like, what a foreign concept now.
Yeah, now it's like, we have an appointment on Tuesday. We have to do all of these things before that.
Yes. But yeah, before that, yeah, I feel like we would spend a lot of time outside. I love music. We did lots of concerts. I am one of those people who, I don't know if you've heard this old wives' tale. It's whatever you spend your New Year's Day doing is like setting the tone for your year. And so it's basically saying that, like, do things on New Year's Day that you enjoy doing. So like, we're not cleaning, we're not doing laundry, we're not like,
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, because you're going to live your life by this.
Yeah.
New Year's Day 2024, you're going to be like, listen, we're not doing any of this housework. Absolutely not.
No.
And so 2018 New Year's Day, and I have a point, I'm getting there. 2018 New Year's Day, we went to a Third Eye Blind concert. And
nice.
I know, it was so much fun. My little emo teenage heart was just loving it. And we almost didn't go, because we had just flown back from the East Coast, because we were living in California, and we were just really tired, definitely hungover. We almost didn't go. And I was like, no, like, it's Third Eye Blind. Like, come on, like, we have to go. Like, our 16-year-old, 17-year-old selves are like, nah, girl, you need to go.
Yeah.
So we went. And then the rest of the year in 2018, we went to like 6 concerts.
Oh my gosh.
And we had not planned, you know what I mean? Like, we hadn't planned those like super in advance. So we used to spend, I would say, like, I used to spend a lot of time just like, this sounds so bad, just like enjoying myself.
I mean, it's honest. It's true.
Yeah. Like, just being honest, like, that is what I was about to say. Like, I spent a lot of time enjoying myself. We did I guess I would say, when I say enjoying myself, I did experiences that were for adults.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't going to the pumpkin patch. And if I was going, like, I was going with a drink in my hand. Like, I wasn't going, like, we're going to Disney on Ice later today, which is like, fine. That's fine. That's fine. But 5 years ago, absolutely not. I have no interest in going to this at all. And I love Disney. Like, we went to Disneyland a million times when we lived in San Diego. But no, I'm not going to a 1 p.m. showing of Disney on Ice. And now I'm like, all right, you guys.
Get excited.
So I feel like that maybe like sends the clearest picture of just like, before, it was very adult-centered activities. And it was so much fun, like going to baseball games, like going out with friends to bars, restaurants, concerts, hikes. And now I'm going out, but I'm going to Disney on Ice. And that's okay. Like, last year we went and saw the Bluey play.
Oh, we did too.
I'm obsessed with Bluey. So I had like no regrets. So like, certain things I'm like, absolutely, I am all in on this. Like, I'm loving that I am experiencing this because I have a child.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a significant difference between like the type of events I go to now in my life, which is fine.
It is.
And at the same time, it is funny to just like, it's a great timing, I guess, that you were asking me that question. Cause I'm like, yeah, we're going to Disney on Ice today.
I went to Third Eye Blind, and today I'm going to Disney on Ice.
Yeah. Big change. Big change.
Yeah. It's still exciting.
Still exciting. Still going to be a great, it's entertainment.
Yes.
It'll still be cool.
You'll have some music.
Those skaters are talented. Okay. I could not be wearing like a Winnie the Pooh head and be throwing like a triple axel. I couldn't do it. Not me.
No, not at all. Nope. No. Oh my gosh. I love that though, that duality where you can like acknowledge both and find joy in both.
Yeah. Because you have to. You kind of
I mean, yeah. And you also don't
True.
have to love it.
True.
I did love Bluey though, just like you. That was awesome.
Oh, I mean, I cried. Like,
yeah, when it was over, like, I was like, it's done. It's already done.
I was like, wait, that was so short.
I know. It was
like
perfect
came
for
on.
The kids.
Oh, great. And I was like, no, I could do another hour. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Dim the lights. Yes. Show me again.
Put those bird shadows back on the wall, please.
Yes.
Please.
My husband looks at me and I'm just like, it's fine. I was like, crying.
Oh my God. I love this. I love being able to laugh like this early. It's not that early, but like,
but still.
It's 9:30. But it's a good way to start the day.
Yeah.
So were kids kind of always on your agenda?
That's a great question. Because my answer is no, that's not. And that, yeah, like that, you know, some people, I always equate it to like some people, their whole life are just like, I want to be a parent. I want to be a parent. I know that's particularly peddled towards us.
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't you want to be a mom? And it just, well, I also think my parents didn't like, I don't recall any adult really in my life kind of just like, at least in my family, kind of just like, oh, assuming I'm going to be a mom. Yeah. I really don't remember that ever being said to me. But it was also just not something I naturally thought about on my own constantly. I mean, I knew I wanted to have kids, but it was kind of just like, that kind of ended it. It was like, yeah, like I want to have kids, but I'm not doing it right now. So like,
right, like someday.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but even like, you know, my husband and I, so we got military married is what we call it. Because it's very common in the military to go get courthouse married.
Yes.
So we got courthouse married in 2017, a couple months after he had proposed to me. And it's just so much easier, like insurance wise. And it was a business transaction. A lovely business transaction, but a business transaction. And then we call it big married. We got big married in June 2018. And we had decided we don't want to try and have kids right away. That's just not for us. We really like the way things are now. We would just like to keep doing what we're doing. And it was 2019 when we decided like, yeah, it's been a little over a year. Like, sure, let's go for it. But even when, you know, like even as a teacher, I think people assumed I was obsessed with children and like, you're going to have like 5 kids of your own. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. So even in the process of like deciding for sure we would like a kid, here we go, let's give it our best shot. I still wasn't like baby crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's just never been me. I actually have a whole episode about like how I'm not a baby person. And for some people, particularly older generations, they're just like, they can't stomach that. And they're just, well, what do you mean? Like babies are just, you know, like the end all and beyond. I'm like, well, before 6 months, they're actually like just really boring. And if I'm not their parent, like, I don't care. Sorry. I don't really care about you. And obviously that's different now that my friends have kids. I'm like, wow, okay. Is this what my aunt was like mad at me about because I didn't feel this way? All right, I get it now. But yeah, I just have never been like not typical, but I don't want to say typical. I don't want to like put that onto women, but I've just never been super interested. I will say having my own kid did kind of like change the game for me. And I was obviously obsessed with my own child.
Yeah.
And taking like 1 million pictures a day. And I remember just kind of being like, wow, like not surprised that I was like this, but like experiencing that for the first time. And some people just naturally are like that, like their whole life.
Yeah.
You know, I was
It's
just like,
baffling.
wow. Yeah. I was like, wow. Like I obviously like I'm obsessed with my own kid and I love my own kid, but I could still walk down the street or like go to a restaurant and be like, oh my God, that baby is so loud. Like, shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yes.
I think, and I have found other people who are the same and different, but someone once said that like, just because I think a lot of people maybe not pretend, but a lot of people project that like, oh my God, I love babies because they think that people think if you find out that like, I'm not baby crazy, you're going to think I'm like a terrible person.
Yeah. Like, what's
They're
wrong
like,
with you?
yeah. And I've realized that like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. It's kind of totally normal to not be super crazy about a baby that's not mine. Like, that's fine. And it doesn't mean that I don't love my baby any less.
Yeah.
And
Of
I think,
course.
I think that's what I focus on now. But yeah, I've never been baby crazy. We only have one child right now. And it might be that way forever. And I'm also perfectly fine with that. That I would say is totally different.
Yeah.
Before we had kids, we were like, I'm one of three. So is my husband. He's a twin, actually. So I was like, oh my God, there better only be one in there.
Yeah. Same. My father-in-law's a twin. And I was like, I swear to God, if no,
absolutely
thank
not.
you. No.
Absolutely not. I was just terrified. Like, especially for the first pregnant. No, just when you know nothing the first time around. No, but, I had always said like, oh, I think like 3 is a good number. And I remember my husband, we had like, these random conversations and he would be like, yeah, but also like 4 is an even number. And now I'm sitting here thinking like, were we, what the fuck? We're literally sitting here being like, oh yeah, like totally. Yeah. We'll just have like 4 kids. I think that's fine.
I think
that sounds great. And for some people it does. For me personally now, after having 1 kid, I'm like, no, that is not for me. Absolutely not. But it's just so wild to think that like the things that you think before you have a kid are just so unhinged. And you like, and then you hear other people say it and you're like, okay, talk to me in a year.
Yeah. or talk to me in 3 or like, yeah. I try so hard to like not interject my own little things, but like so much of what you're saying resonates with me because I was like, we were like, my husband's like, yeah, we could have like 2 or 3. And then we had my first and I was like, I'm done. I'm never having any other children. And my kids are 7 years apart. So it took me 7 years to decide that I wanted another one. And I love too that you're like, maybe someday I might change my mind, but I totally might not too, because this is fucking hard. Yeah. So yeah. And you said your little one's 3?
He's 3. And thanks to years of therapy for me, I can do that answer very, I'm very much like, yes. Oh yeah, maybe we will, maybe we won't. I'm very secure in the fact that like we only have 1 child, but it was not always that way at all, especially when you have people. I'm literally 2 weeks postpartum. I'm sure you experienced some of this as well. And people are like, oh, are you going to have another one? I'm like, I'm still bleeding.
Yeah. Like I'm wearing a diaper, Janet.
Yeah. Like, why are you asking me this right now? How about you like, hey, can I do your laundry for you? Yes, you can. Thank you so much. That's actually what I need to hear come out of your mouth. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So I think it was very, I was like so fresh. I had the trauma of the pandemic. I had birth trauma because I hemorrhaged and I had to have like emergency surgery. And that also greatly impacted my recovery, like that much blood loss. Yeah. And then to have people acting like everything that I just went through was like a walk in. It felt very dismissive. And I would often react very like defensively and I guess like borderline angrily because I was just like being a bitch, and which is fine. I don't regret reacting that way, but I don't regret it, but it was very hard how like triggered and how emotionally flooded my body would get when people would ask me those questions. And I almost to the point where like I would get so flustered that I would want to deliver a like very succinct, like, don't fucking ever ask me this question ever again kind of answer. And I was just so flustered I couldn't. So I used to literally practice like with my therapist of like, if someone says like, oh my gosh, like Robin, that's my son's name, like Robin needs a sibling, like, how does that make me feel when someone says that? And then like, what would I like to say back? Like, let me get it in my brain. Like, let me have the answers in my back pocket. That way, if someone approaches me, I can literally just be like, nope, I'm going to answer you, but you are not going to emotionally flood me right now because I have practiced this. So it's been a long time coming. And it's been, like it's your friends, it's your family members. Everybody's just
it's everybody.
It's everybody. And it's such I guess I'm sure I did it before having a child of my own. I guarantee you I did it 100%.
Yeah.
I'm sure I did the whole like, oh, is he sleeping? Like I asked all
those
of the
questions.
dumb, gross questions for sure. Because I didn't know what else to ask. And that was modeled for me. But now I'm like, wow, how are we genuinely sitting here as someone's holding their newborn, fresh out baby? And they're still physically recovering. They've barely started their physical recovery, let alone like their mental recovery. I have no idea what this person's labor and delivery looked like. I have no idea what this person's pregnancy was like, unless they're my very best friend and they've been telling me everything. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, like, we have the audacity to sit here and be like, so do you think you're going to have another one?
Oh my God.
Like, what? Don't fucking ask people that. So
it's so intrusive too. It's so intrusive.
Yes. You're in their bedroom.
Yeah. Yes. Well, like even before you have kids, like when you first get married, some of the questions you get even at your wedding. So when are you guys having kids?
Yeah.
When are you going to have kids? And it's like, mind your business.
Yeah. Just eat the food. Enjoy the buffet.
The cake's really good. Have you tried it? Because it's delicious. Bye.
Open bars over that way. Thank you. Yeah, 100%. I used to joke. So she wasn't that bad. I think she also knew, like, don't fucking try it. My mother, like with me, I think my mother-in-law kind of like knows that like I 100% will call you out and be like, I'm sorry, you're asking me that question? Like she can't get away. She definitely knows by this point, by trial and error, she's learned she cannot get away with as much shit with me as she can with other people. But there were at least one or two times where she did the whole like grandkids, this, obviously before we had kids, the whole just like not asking for grandkids, just like the whole creepy, like, what are you guys? And, that was really specific. And
I got you. I follow.
I was going to say every single person who's experienced this knows exactly what I meant by,
yeah.
And one time I sent her this like meme, just literally just text it to her. And it was, oh my God, I like can't fully remember it. It was probably in 2018. So like 2017, long before we were thinking of having kids. And it just said something like my mom, like asking for kids, my response, you got grandkids money? And, and I sent it to her and I was like, good morning or something like that. And she laughed, but I was also like, look, I'm going to tell this to you in a jokey way, but like also like back off. Like this is not appropriate for you. I don't care that I'm married to your son. I don't care. Like you may have great intentions. That doesn't like negate the fact that your questions and your like comments are so inappropriate and really uncomfortable. Like you are making me so uncomfortable. I cannot believe you. I've read like potential responses to say to people like when you feel very uncomfortable or when they're asking you an intrusive question. And one that I love, I don't think I've had a chance to use it yet, but it's in my back pocket now. I'm ready. Is wow, I'm surprised you feel comfortable asking people that.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Because you immediately, I'm still not answering your intrusive question, but you immediately put it back on them. Like, wow, you feel comfortable doing that. Like, that's really interesting. That says a lot about you as a person that you feel comfortable asking me that question.
I
So yeah, there you
am
go.
putting that in
Write
my
it down.
pocket. Oh my God. I love that. Okay. Well, that's also assuming that I'll be assertive enough to do that. But
Again, practice, practice, practice. It takes
yes.
practice, but yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. So I guess sort of to take it naturally into the motherhood journey or the parenthood journey, what did that look like for you when you finally decided like, yeah, I guess we're going to give this a go?
So we were this is such sometimes I get very uncomfortable answering this question just because I am my people pleasing comes up here and I don't want to make other people feel bad.
I feel
'Cause
that. I feel
it
that.
was very easy for me to get pregnant.
Yeah.
It
Same.
was 2 months, 2 cycles, done.
Yeah.
And that was it. And even I was like, oh, okay.
Right? Like,
Not, yeah, like, wow. All right.
okay.
Cool.
You don't want to practice a little more? Like, we're all okay, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was not. I wasn't expecting it to happen that quickly. I also was like I said, it was the beginning of the school year. We had just moved. Like, we were very busy. So I think maybe that was another reason why I was like, oh, it's going to take a while because like we're doing other things right now. But no, it was we moved from San Diego in June 2019 and we delayed our honeymoon until our move. So we went to, and it's so funny considering the pandemic happened a couple months later, we went to Europe for like 3 weeks and we had this, like, I know, it was so much fun. It really was worth the wait to like not take a honeymoon for over a year. It was really worth the wait. And then we decided, so we were there in July in Europe, the whole month of July, pretty much. And we decided to start trying in Europe. And even then I was just like, we're busy doing stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my time. Yeah. So just like wasn't thinking about a whole lot. And then we got to North Carolina in early August and I had to go because I was new to the county. So I had to go get a physical for teaching. And it was just such a random question. I was like, I'm just going to ask her. We'll just see what she says. And it was I believe she was a nurse practitioner and she was just like taking my blood pressure for the physical. And I was just sitting there and I was like, so what would you, it's like, I think we're going to try and like more seriously to like get pregnant. Like, is there anything that like you would recommend? Is there anything that like worked for you? You know, I was just like a shot in the dark and no pun intended. Genuinely no pun intended. And she was like, without hesitation, she just said, have sex every 3 days. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, yeah, like that will greatly increase your chances. Have sex every 3 days. And I mean, that was early August. I got pregnant, I think like mid to late August.
Wow.
So, and I remember, and that was, I guess, one of my only other thoughts is like, wow, it worked. She was right. Like, she knew what she was talking about. Like,
I mean,
correct.
Your odds are if you're having sex every 3 days, like something's going to happen. So.
Right? Like, that's pretty, yeah. I feel like that gives you maybe like some of the highest chances ever. So, yeah, so that's how it worked. And I was very, like, my boobs got so freaking sore, but they always get sore right before my period. But they were like so sore that like the force, like the gravitational force of me sitting down, like from standing up, I was like, oh, like, wow. I was like, damn, this is fucking wild. And that was like on a Friday. And one of my teammates was like using a Sharpie. And I was just like, I need to physically leave this room because
from the smell.
Yes. I was just like, okay, I'm out. You're writing on the chart paper. I gotta go. Like, I cannot deal with this smell right now. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess I should buy a test.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And so the next day, I didn't tell anyone on my team, but I did tell them in the beginning of the school year that like, hey, there is a possibility like I might be pregnant during the school year, which is fine. And it was a Saturday. I can lean towards pessimism very easily. And I think also it's my anxiety protecting me so that I'm not super disappointed. Mm-hmm. So I didn't say anything. My husband knew I had a test, but I didn't say anything to him. I didn't tell him I was going to take the test that day. I literally didn't say anything to anyone because I just didn't want to I just didn't want to like hype it up. And then if I wasn't pregnant, I just didn't want to feel like the disappointment. Yeah. So I just like went to the bathroom, took it, and kind of just like walked out. Actually, you have to wait. What is it? 3 minutes?
3 minutes,
Yeah.
I think.
And I walked out. I was just like doing something else. And then I remember, I think I'd like set a timer on my phone. I went back in, and literally in my head, I was saying like, oh, it's going to be like, it's going to be negative, and that's okay. But like, it's going to be negative. That's okay. And I picked it up, and I just was like, holy shit. And I like walked really fast. Our bedroom was in the back. I walked really fast out to the living room holding the stick. And I was like telling my husband, like, I'm pregnant. And he had just taken like a giant bite of a donut. So he like stood up, and he was like, like, and I think he said, are you serious? Or like, you are, or something like that. But it was very hard to understand him. And I remember just like laughing, because he's just like such a genuine, like, not a social media moment of it being like this perfect surprise, and me just being like, oh my God, and him being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. So that was, and then I remember I felt in shock.
Yeah.
I was like super excited. And then 10 minutes later, we were both just kind of like sitting there on the couch, like looking at each other.
Just happened?
Yes. Just like truly like, oh shit.
This is real.
Oh yeah. Like what? Oh no.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know, like not, oh no, but like, oh shit.
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
wow, there's just about to be so much.
Mhm.
Yeah. And luckily, I didn't throw up a single time, but I was just like crazy nauseous. And I already have a pretty good sense of smell. And when I was pregnant, my husband called me a bloodhound. Like it was bad. Like I could not be around certain smells, but the nausea was pretty bad. Like the first trimester, I actually believe, looking back at it, I believe I did, like, my perinatal depression started like pretty shortly after I found out I was pregnant. It was rough. It was mostly like the sleep deprivation from like pregnancy insomnia, and just the exhaustion really exacerbated my depression. It was rough until about week 10, 11. I was just like, oh, hello. I'm here. And I don't feel like a literal walking zombie. Wow, like what a refreshing feeling, considering the last like 10 weeks of my life have fucking sucked. And I realized like why they call it the honeymoon trimester, the second one, because it really, yeah, like the second one is very, very easy breezy. It was like, yeah, it was fine. It was no big deal. It was kind of how I thought it would be to be pregnant.
Like the whole, what you expected pregnancy to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, yes, you're pregnant, but it's not really like impacting my life in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but it's not, I'm not really having to like do anything extra. I'm kind of just like going about my day, living my life. And I have since had a breast reduction. I had one in 2021, but my boobs naturally are very large. And so in pregnancy, they were just like on a whole nother planet, just whole other planets.
They
themselves.
were their own planets.
They were their own planets. And I don't think my belly surpassed my boobs until I was like, so my birthday's in January, and I just think of this picture, and I remember in the picture that I took on my birthday, I was like, well, nope, not yet. Like boobs are still bigger than my belly. I think it was maybe by February, by like late February, I was like, hey, finally. But one of my teammates told me, and I could totally see it, and it like made me laugh at the time. I came into her classroom, and I was like leaning up against her door frame because I was obviously exhausted. And she looked at me and she was like, you literally look like you're wearing one of those pregnancy, like weighted pregnancy costumes. And I was just like, and at first I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, I'm going to take a picture of you, because it literally looks like you are wearing like a stereotypical like pregnancy, almost like a Mrs.
Like
Doubtfire.
from Clueless? Like
yes.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, sure. Like take the picture, whatever. And I can see that picture in my head. And she was like, look. And I was like, wow. Yeah, you're actually kind of right. I literally, like, it kind of looks like ridiculous. Like it just looks.
It wasn't Clueless. It was 10 Things I Hate About You, right?
Yes.
Sorry. I
No,
can't
no.
mess that millennial. I can't mess that up.
We have to, yes, we need to know the reference. Thank you. The pop culture reference. Thank you. Yes. And it was, but yeah, the second trimester was fine. The third trimester was probably when I finally, though, internally, like accepted my body. It wasn't until the third trimester that I was kind of like being able to see the beauty in being pregnant, like the physicality of it. Cause it really, that is something I did have a hard time with is, you know, like you go to get dressed and you expect a shirt to fit a different way, fit a certain way.
Yeah.
Because your whole life it has like your body just has worn clothes relatively the same way. And oh yeah, the amount of times I like cried in our closet because I was just like, I'm having such a hard time with something as simple as getting dressed.
Yeah.
And I never really had a difficult time with that before. And it was to be changing physically was very vulnerable for me because as you know, people are going to people.
Yes.
And they're going to say things. And again, sure, you have great intentions. Sure, it's a joke, but like, I really don't want my body to be a topic of conversation ever, but particularly when I was pregnant and flooded with hormones and just felt the most like strange in my body. And there were many times that I just like that same coworker a couple months later, it was the end of the day. And we had like bus duty, we had dismissal duty, which I'm sure, as you know, just like the worst.
Yep.
And especially as our buses were late, like we were one of like the last
Always.
schools. So we before 30 and like the buses would just roll up and we're just like, oh my God. And I was sitting there and I was just clearly exhausted. This was probably February. And she looked at me and she was just like, again, lovingly, like, Audrey, if you ever listen to this, I know you didn't mean it, but she was like, wow, like with a smile, like trying to be so nice, but she just goes, you look so pregnant right now. And I literally almost started crying right then and there. And instead of, I like was very close to crying. And instead I got like mad at her and I was just like, okay, I don't really know what to do with that information. So I guess, thank you. Like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then she could tell I was pissed. And she was like, no, like, I'm sorry. I just meant that like, you look beautiful. Like you just like, you are pregnant and you look beautiful. And of course, in my mind, like it was too late. I was already just like, my feelings were hurt. I was upset. I just like, don't want people talking about my body and, you know, like negative or what they seem as positive. Like, even if you think it's positive, like, please no, like, please don't say anything about my fucking body. And I was just like, okay, no, like, I get it. I just like, I just really don't like, okay, thanks. Yeah. And so there were a lot of the, I guess a lot of like the comments that people made were really difficult and were very like wearing on me because I was like, it's a long time. Like, thank God we're not elephants because they're pregnant for a whole 12 months. Can you imagine?
No.
Like, that's potentially doing the same holiday twice pregnant. That could potentially mean like 2 Christmases pregnant. What?
No, thank
trash.
you.
No, thank you. Sorry, elephants. No, thank you. But yeah, it was, you know, it was a long time of like my body changing and not being in control of it. And I think that was also a lot of it was the lack of control that I no longer had. And that was my first ever experience of like, your body's going to do whatever it wants to do. And you kind of really have no say. Like, in a sense, your body kind of goes on autopilot and you're just along for the ride. Yeah. And that was very hard for me. So it probably wasn't until like March that I was able to kind of finally accept it. And that's when I started taking like pictures of myself being pregnant because I also knew I wanted to remember this, like even if I wasn't necessarily enjoying it now. No one's going to look back at pictures of themselves pregnant and be like, oh my God, like, ew. Like, no, you're, you're not going to be like, wow, I hate that I took that picture. Like, I'm so mad that this picture exists. Like, no, you're going to look at it and immediately be kind of maybe nostalgic or also annoyed. Like, oh, I hated being pregnant, but like, hey, I have this picture to like, at least have the memory.
Yeah. Of when they were on the inside. This is when you lived inside of me and made me miserable.
Exactly.
So you mentioned it a little bit before we started talking about the journey into motherhood, but your birth experience, it sounds like it was traumatic. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it many times before,
Yeah.
on many podcasts, actually. And I've talked about it again with therapy extensively. And it's also this weird. So I have since become a childbirth educator, and that actually has helped me work on my labor and delivery stuff, by talking to other people about what to expect and how they can empower themselves. Um, so I gave birth on the military base.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because I do believe if I had been at a civilian hospital, my experience could have been better, or at least could have been different.
You are the second person that I have talked to this month that has said
Mm.
that.
Yeah. Which, like, I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate that that's like a trend.
Yeah.
Um, and so it is cute though that like my husband and my son were born at the same hospital. So like that's cute at
Yeah,
least.
that's cute.
At least that's that's cute.
That's cute. Yeah.
So at least there's that. But I was very, all my birth classes got canceled because of the pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of turned to finding, we did like a few online classes. I also read a couple books, and I wanted to go as non-medicated for as long as possible. That was one of my goals. That was something that I just wanted to do. And I remember asking, I was like, doing like a weekly appointment. And I asked one of the midwives who I really liked, and I said, or nurse midwife. And I said, like, I really would like to go unmedicated. Do you have any suggestions? And she said, stay home as long as you can.
Mm.
And I didn't fully understand why until after it was over. And that is something I tell my clients now: stay home as long as you can, because it's not just the act of like being in a hospital that's going to increase your chances of receiving medical pain management if that's something you don't want. It's also the like peer pressure, like the medical peer pressure, which is something I've talked about a lot, because I feel like that's what ended up happening to me. Is I was I was very much like, I would like to do it this way. And they were very much like, oh no, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
It was point blank, like, no. I asked for intermittent fetal monitoring, knowing that my pregnancy is not high risk. I'm a great candidate for it, et cetera, et cetera. No, we don't do that here. Strap me down to the continuous fetal monitoring, which means I can't move more than like a foot and a half from the bed.
Yeah.
And as I now know, as I now understand even more, the environment that I walked into was not a helpful environment for me to give birth in. And there are true connections between your mental state and your physical state. And that's why I tell people, like, birth is 60% physical, the other 40% is mental. And if you feel uncomfortable, your body is going to present uncomfortably. So I ended up getting an epidural, which I was fine with after about like 8-9 hours of unmedicated labor. And it was actually very good for my mental health that I got an epidural, because gave me a second to be like, oh, okay.
Brought you to the present a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just got to like enjoy and not enjoy the labor, but just a different perspective of like, oh, okay. So this isn't like terrible. Okay.
I don't have to feel like I'm dying.
Yeah, yeah. Like I get to sit here and eat popsicles and like watch the monitor. Ooh, that's a big contraction. Wow, look at that go. And when it came time to the actual delivery, though, I feel like that is where my trauma kind of truly started, because I got the epidural and that thing fully worked. I was one of those people.
Good.
Yes, worked 100%. But it did make it harder for me to try positions that I wanted to try. So I did end up in the, like, unfortunately, because it's, now that we know, it's an awful position for your body, I did end up on my back, knees into my chest, pushing. I pushed for 2 hours. And then while I was pushing, we didn't find this out until after, but while I was pushing, my cervix tore in 3 different places. So if you think of your cervix like a clock, so obviously like 12's at the top, 6 at the bottom. Mine were at, it's very hard for me to remember this stuff also because trauma brain, my brain's like, no. They were at 4, 6, and 7. So it was 3 tears. And then the one at 6 is obviously like the deepest. So as I was still bleeding, like I gave birth, Robin's on my chest. I'm in love. I am just like completely zoned in on him. I felt the placenta come out. I was like, great. And I know like, oh, it's going to take about 15 minutes on average for them to sew me up.
Yeah.
I had a 2nd-degree tear. So I was like knowing all this stuff in my logical brain, looking at Robin, but also like aware that like, okay, they need to like finish up. I ended up bleeding for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Because they could not find the source of the bleed. And it was one of those things where like, it's one medical professional, then it's 2, then it's 4, then it's 5. And they were very much trying to keep me distracted by like paying attention to Robin. But I'm watching Jimmy and I'm watching his face. That's what really took me out of it because I'm watching him like not really paying attention to us anymore. And instead is like focusing at the end of the bed, like trying to listen to the medical professionals. And a surgeon came in. I think that was also my first hint that like, oh, okay. And her vibe was very like, what the fuck have you guys been doing this whole time? It's been 2 hours. She came in just very, like you could tell she was just like, what the fuck? So she was like, no, we're going to go to like, we think this is what it is. We need to double check. The one laceration is too deep. We cannot reach it in this position that you're in. You need to go surgery. So after bleeding for 2 hours, I handed Robin over to Jimmy and they wheeled me out. And I remember just total shock, just literally just being like, bye. Like literally smiling and just being like, bye. As I'm sure he told me later, he was obviously like freaking out and just panicking. I was gone for maybe about an hour. And have you ever seen like an old school butcher? Those like giant meat hooks that they like hang meat from. My legs were the meat. Oh, if that makes sense. So so my lower to mid back was on the operating table and up. Yep. But like my sacrum and below were like hanging up in the air. So like this would be like my butt, like the bottom of my palm.
Yep.
Because that was the only angle that they could really like get in there and cauterize it to stop the bleeding. So just
were you awake?
Yes, I was awake. I was still numb from the epidural. They gave me some morphine. I think they gave me like a little baby injection of the epidural just to like keep it extended. So I was awake. I was in shock. I remember the anesthesiologist was just like rubbing, like not brushing my hair. What is this? Petting,
like petting your head.
Yeah. And he was very nice though. He was like, are you cold? Like, do you need anything? And I was like, again, just in shock. So I was just like, no, I'm fine. Like,
I'm okay.
I just laid there. I remember I closed my eyes. I wasn't going to sleep. I just kind of like closed my eyes. They almost sent me to the PACU because of the blood loss. And I would have been separated from Robin, but thankfully, like they had literally called the PACU team to like come and get me. And yeah, so they had come in to get me. And I guess the surgeon had changed her mind that I didn't need to go to the PACU because I remember they rolled in and they were going to like transfer me to a different gurney or whatever. And then she was like, nope, she can go back. She can go to recovery, like with her son. It's fine. Like she's going to be okay. But that was, bleeding for 2 hours, like the blood loss in general that you experience in birth in general.
Yeah.
And then I just had like additional hemorrhaging, made my recovery such a blur and just so hard. Like, I was so exhausted. I was like scared to get up and walk. They had to like, basically the nurses like 2 nurses had to come in and be like, hey, like you gotta get up. Like we can help you, but like you have to walk. Like you need to do it. So yeah, it just unfortunately set a really like difficult tone for the first like 3 weeks postpartum. And that sat with me and was just very, very difficult. And I obviously like didn't share it with a lot of people. Like I'm not, my family knew, like some close friends knew that like this thing happened, but I wasn't like exactly telling everybody. And looking back, I think if I had to do it again, I actually would tell anyone and everyone to get them to understand what just happened to me. And also another reason that you need to leave me the fuck alone. And that like
Yes.
you need to be extra gentle with me right now and understand what I have just been through, and also understand like what birthing people go through. And like even a stereotypical like vaginal birth is still trauma to your
Yes.
body in some way, shape, or form. And that is a very hard truth. I do tell my expecting clients, the odds are you're going to experience trauma in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what it's going to be. I can't tell you how little or how big it's going to be for you, but you will experience it in some way, because giving birth, the act of giving birth itself, is traumatic to the body. It's also like
Absolutely.
being born is trauma. Like the baby is
Yes.
experiencing, like it's hard. It's just this jarring physical experience. And it is something that I think the tides are turning. I think, especially because our generation is much more blunt and much more open.
Yes.
And I think we are seeing a shift in how people do treat pregnant people and postpartum people, and like the normalizing a lot of the conversations, but there still is a long way to go. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
shifting, but it's still a long way
Well,
to go.
the narrative that is pushed is birth is natural and it's this beautiful process and pregnancy is beautiful, and that's not true. And then when you're left, especially a first-time parent, you're there and it's happening, and you're like, there's nothing beautiful about this. And
Yes.
I want to acknowledge that for some people it is.
Yes.
For some people it's beautiful. Pregnancy is beautiful and they love it and they want to do it all the time, and childbirth is easy. But that's not the norm. I
Yeah.
put in
No.
quotations. It's not the norm, and it's not talked about. So, yeah, like trauma. Birth is trauma.
It really is. And I also think people, the more we say that word, I think the more people can just become comfortable with it. Because I think that's part of it, is that people get so uncomfortable when you say these truths about birth, and
Yeah.
particularly using the word trauma or traumatic. I
It
think
feels
people,
scary.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's valid. Like it is pretty, like it's scary. Like it can
Yeah.
be, because also it's just so many things are out of your control. And there's so many things changing, and all of those change is scary and transition is scary. But I think if we can really just create, or if we can normalize the word trauma for more people to understand that, like, it's not, I don't want to say, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. Like it is a big deal, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that even a tiny small thing can be traumatic for a person, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
there can be like capital T trauma in your life, and there can be lowercase t trauma in your life, but the person next to you could have it switched. Your capital
Mhm.
T is their lowercase t, and vice versa. And it's really subjective. But I think people sometimes tend to look at it as more objective. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, you didn't have a C-section, oh, so your birth is fine. It's
Like,
like, no,
no.
no,
Mm.
no.
It's I've referenced this before, but like it's I don't like the saying we're all in the same boat. I prefer we're in the same storm, but we're in our own boats.
Mm,
So because we're all coming at it from a different perspective, we're all coming at it from a different background. Like you said, somebody's capital T trauma might be my lowercase t trauma. So yes, we're all experiencing childbirth and we're all experiencing pregnancy, but we are experiencing them in very different ways.
yeah.
And what you were saying also reminded me of there's someone that I follow on social media who I have loved and respected for years because of body neutrality, and they recently gave birth after a very long long, long, long experience with infertility and pregnancy loss. And the narrative that they are pushing right now is stop scaring moms. Stop scaring moms and telling them that pregnancy is awful and that having a newborn is scary, and stop doing it. And I want to be like, I'm so happy that it wasn't that way for you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that after everything that you went through, because you went through a lot to get your beautiful baby, that motherhood is everything you wanted it to be. That's so great for you. But we do need to tell these stories, and
Yeah.
we do need to prepare birthing people, because it's not always that way.
Yeah. I've seen a few people on social media kind of saying very similar things and telling people that or definitely using the term like people are so negative about
Yeah.
pregnancy, or you're so negative about parenting. You're telling people that it's awful. You're scaring people. And yeah, I feel the exact same way as you. Like, clearly this means your experience is different. And maybe you feel unheard
Mm-hmm.
because all this person is consuming is that like birth is scary or parenting is awful, and that's not their experience, so they're feeling unseen. I'm sorry that you're feeling unseen. And
And
not but and it is important to share all birth and parenting perspectives.
yeah.
And a lot of those do have a common theme of being traumatic or overwhelming
Yeah.
or scary or hard
Or shit. Just shit.
Yeah. And
Just awful.
I tell my clients, because I am aware that like, especially on the podcast and being also surrounded by this, that we can sit here and kind of just be like, yeah, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And then we'll be like, all right, have a great day. And like, we can move on.
Yes.
and,
Yes.
And that's because, like we're in it, we are involved in it, and it's something that we do. And I try and kind of like keep that in my brain that like when I am talking to pregnant people, that's not their norm yet. Or maybe it's never going to be their norm. So I shouldn't necessarily push that onto them. And what I end up kind of saying is, because my childbirth class is extremely inclusive. We talk about every single option, medical or non. We're talking about all different birth outcomes, vaginal or surgery. Like, I want everyone to know everything, which I know can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And what I say is, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. You want to be prepared.
Teacher.
Yes.
Yes.
Really, truly. You want to be prepared so you feel less scared. And I do acknowledge, though, that like, if you feel like that wasn't your experience, like that person who you're talking about who is obviously just not having the same or similar experience as many of us are having, 100%, it can definitely feel like, what the fuck? Like, why is everybody like, you're ruining this? Because maybe they feel like we're ruining it for them.
Maybe.
And we're definitely not.
No.
Have to say.
I am not invalidating. I'm not invalidating her experience. I will readily admit I am jealous.
Oh my God.
I am
100%.
envious. I am so envious that you got to birth the way you wanted to birth, in the place that you wanted to birth, and that you're nursing, and that you're doing all of these things and connecting with your child, and that it's wonderful. And I'm so happy for you. That is so polar opposite to my experience. And I'm not going to invalidate yours, so do not invalidate mine.
Yeah. It's truly a place of the exact metaphor that you used in the storm. Like, just because I'm sharing my experience doesn't mean that I don't value yours, doesn't mean that yours doesn't matter. But I do acknowledge that like, not everybody thinks that way. That's just the reality. So, and if you are not yet, let's use a growth mindset. If you are not yet able to think that way, I hope you do the work and you're able to eventually get to that place, because it's also, you realize that like, we are not in competition with each other.
No.
We are literally, it's hundreds thousands, millions of swim lanes. We're all parallel. We're all going towards the same direction. But like, I am not your competition. You're not my competition. We are here to help each other. We're not supposed to be tearing each other down, because that is what society, even before we have kids, that's what society has already set us up to feel like. And if it's so easy to keep going in that way, and like, or even slip into that as a parent, it's so easy to slip into that. Because mostly because social media makes it super easy to compare your life to someone else's. And then you end up feeling resentful towards other people, and you're unsatisfied with your own life. And I went on right after I gave birth, I went on like a mini unfollowing spree, which is something I also highly encourage my clients to do. Like, as difficult as it is, see how little time you can spend on social media when you're early postpartum. See how many people you can unfollow. Truly, if you're looking at someone's content and it's making you feel like shit about yourself, unfollow them.
Yes.
Maybe you'll follow them back later. Maybe you never will. And that's fine. Who cares? There was a person.
That's a wonderful thing. Mute. Yes. They'll never know, especially if it's a friend.
Yes.
Just mute them. They'll never know. And you don't have to see it.
And it's fine. Yeah.
Yes.
I had to unfollow. I don't know her. She is some sort of like influencer. I don't even remember. But she had her kid maybe like 2 to 3 weeks before I had Robin. And that is where it really got me, the comparison, because I was like, okay, well, like chronologically, we're very similar, but wow, she looks like she hasn't even fucking had a child. Ugh. And I 100% don't look like that right now. And oh no, maybe it was she had her kid, because I remember saying this to Jimmy, and I'm pretty sure he was like, oh, you need to get on social media. It was she had her kid after. Okay. That's what I had a really hard time with for a little while, when I was just caught up in the whole like gross bounce back culture, and just, well, you don't want to look like a mom, right? Like you need to look like, gross. And I don't subscribe to any of that now, which is amazing. But again, this was years ago. But yeah, I remember she had her kid after, and it was very hard for me to see people who had their child like 3 to 6 weeks after I had mine, quote, look better than me. It was very hard for me for a really long time. It just like fucking tore my self-esteem in half. And I just had to unfollow them, and also just like be on social media less, because it really does warp. I'm not trying to get into like I hate social media, because I don't. Like the internet's wonderful for so many things, but you have to just be really mindful. And it's so easy to be mindless when you're scrolling.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's literally designed that way. Like it is. We've all seen, what was the Netflix documentary?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah. Yeah. Where they talk about essentially like how they created these apps so that we stay on them. Like they interviewed the guy who created infinite scrolling, and he literally says he regrets creating it because he thinks it has really messed up people. Yeah. And I can confirm it's so much harder to get on social media when it doesn't stop.
TikTok is the worst, but it's the thing that I go to the most. And it is. It's exactly, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm flicking my thumb because that's exactly what it is. You just, okay, next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it, I mean, I didn't coin this term, but doom scrolling.
Yeah.
We just doom scroll. Yeah, it's awful. And it's totally a comparison game. And I'm reiterating what you're saying, but as I identify as non-binary, but as a female presenting person and as a person raised as a female, we are programmed to be in competition with one another, and also believe that we are less than our male counterparts. So we have to compete with each other because we have to have some sort of like dominance in some area.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, well, Jenny had her baby and she's already going on a hike, and she's 2 weeks postpartum, and
so that must mean I'm doing a terrible job. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
meanwhile, Jenny probably shouldn't be freaking anyway.
Jenny probably is wearing a diaper and
100%,
and is only taking a shoulder up photo with a big smile on her face to show the world how lovely her life is, when really she just peed her pants and wants to go back down the mountain.
Yeah. And she probably needs pelvic floor physical therapy like we all do.
Yes. Yes. Which was not a thing when I had my first, or if it was, no one told me about it. And then when I had my second, I was like, this is amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my
gosh. If I do have a second child, I have already it's just, that's another thing I think that does make me hopeful because my son's only 3. It's only been 3 years, but I know so much more and have learned so much more. And I also think our generation, a lot of stuff is becoming normalized, like pelvic floor physical therapy, going to a talk therapy in general, talking about like the realities of what happened to your body when you're pregnant and the fact that like you might need some professional help. And that's okay. It's not normal to cross your legs when you sneeze after you have a baby. Like that's literally not normal.
Wait, it's not normal that I can't jump on my trampoline without wetting myself.
You need to go to a medical professional. And I do think that though, like that is something that has changed even just in the last like 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
Is that like that the knowledge of like that possibility just becoming more readily available. And I truly think by the time, in 20 years from now, when our kids are possibly having their own kids, or our kids are adults, I should say, it's going to look so different for like discussions about children, discussions about pregnancy, discussions about labor and delivery, about postpartum. I truly do believe it's going to be a much more inclusive and normalized conversation as a whole. And
I
people
really
will.
Hope so.
I really, really do. I really think it's true, especially just like, so we went to I know we have to wrap it up, but I went to a kid's birthday party this past Saturday. Again, really bringing it full circle.
Yeah.
These are the
events. My weekend.
And it is, and I've done a whole episode about kids' birthday parties and how most of the time they suck. But this one surprisingly was okay. And I won't even go into that because that's not what it's about. But
okay.
But I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? I really think this generation, because I know our kids are the alpha generation. I was like, I really think they are more accepting. They are more empathetic. And I really hope they don't lose that as they grow up, because I was sitting there talking to another mom. She has a daughter, and we were talking about jeans and pants, and I'm a taller person, I have long legs, and she's a shorter person, so we were kind of like, oh my gosh, like she's like, yeah, I'm looking for petite. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm like, where the longs at? You got some longs up in there?
Yeah.
And I said, like Robin has my long legs, and I can already tell like it is going to be a little hard for him sometimes. Or like he's just going to grow out of pants lengthwise very quickly.
He's going to rock the high waters.
For sure. Like
my daughter's the same way.
It's a rite of passage. Yeah. And I was telling her how I just gone to Target on Friday, and I end up going into this is a whole nother, I'll try very hard to not get on my soapbox. I get a lot of Robin's clothes from the quote, I'm putting in quotes, girl section.
I get a lot of my kids' clothes from the quote boys section. So I get it. I get it.
And because the leggings are longer and
skinnier.
Yes. And he has a narrower waist and long legs. So I need something that fits both those things. And I was getting a few, and he saw a pair that were like cream and they had like pink and purple hearts on them. And I guess also Cat and Jack is doing like a hearts thing. Because I was
legit
I was
have
like,
those. We have those that you're talking about.
We do now too. Because Robin was like, oh, hearts. And I kind of was like just very hunting for a 3T, which was like proving to be very difficult. So I was like, yeah, hearts, as I'm like flipping through the leggings. And then I kind of stopped and I was like, do you want those? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'll buy those for you. And I was telling the mom the story, and she was like, I really do think like this next, and she's the one who said it, she was like, this next generation is truly just like so much more accepting, like naturally. And I really do think it's so beautiful. She was saying how they just like, it's fine. We have kids at Robin's preschool who are experimenting already. Like we have children who come to school in dresses who maybe aren't the traditional, again, all quotes, traditional dress wearers. And it's not a big deal.
No,
it's
they don't
it's
care.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's wonderful. It gives me hope.
I am so with you. I am so with you. It makes me so happy because it really does show that don't put those ideas in their head, they don't come up with them on their own. Discrimination and all of the ugly things that we're seeing in the world, they are taught. They're not
Yeah.
they just don't, our kiddos don't have them. Yes. Ugh, it warms my heart.
Yeah.
This episode did not go in the way that I thought it would.
Sorry.
And I love it. No, I love it so much because we need episodes like this too. So many of my episodes are parents, caregivers, birth givers who need an outlet to share their trauma and share their story and just get it out into the world. And that's how this podcast started. And it's evolving. And what I love about this conversation is that we had smatterings of that. We had little bits of that. But I love also how much I got to learn about where you're finding joy in the bullshit and what you see as change in all of this and how you're a part of that. And yeah, this just evolved into this amazing conversation that I'm so glad that we were able to have. Like, I feel like I could talk to you for hours.
I know. I was sitting here looking at the time and like, oh shoot, I know we're over. And at the same time, I was like, well, that's okay.
It's totally fine. I schedule these for an hour and a half just in case. But so I guess just like at the end of the day, thank you for choosing to join me and to sort of tell your story and share this amazing conversation with me. And I think this question is especially good for you because of how you've sort of evolved from your birth story and with everything you're doing now. What do you want other women and birth givers to know? What's like, if you could plant one little nugget in them going into this whole process? I know that that's a huge question, but like, what do you think is the most important thing for them to know going into this experience?
It is a very hard question, but it is a question I feel like I do think about often because in the end, I would like to be like, listen, if you don't listen to anything I just said to you, whether I'm talking to a client or not, but like, here is, if I have to share one thing with you, it is this. And it is such an important thing for us to do. And it's also so fucking hard. It is slowing down. I think if I could go back and tell myself, my son was born on May 19th, 2020. I went into labor on May 18th. I think if I could go back to May 17th, 2020, I would grab my own face, be like, listen up, you beautiful bitch. You have to slow down. You are going to spend the next couple months moving very slowly. And that's exactly what you are supposed to be doing. Your definition of a productive day is about to be completely different from what you previously thought. A newly postpartum person's productive day is taking care of their child and themselves. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not having anything to do with the house. It's not walking the dog. It's not even brushing your teeth. Who cares? It is taking care of your body. That means, okay, so maybe brush your teeth. So
well, feed yourself.
Feed yourself, water yourself.
Yes.
Go outside.
You are a beautiful plant.
Yes, spend at least 10 to 15 minutes outside and do all of those things that you just did for yourself, for your baby.
Exactly.
Feed your baby, change your baby, water your baby, sleep your baby in a safe sleep surface, and just slow down. I think that is, and it's such a hard thing for us to do, but I do think that's why it's something I'm trying to tell people more and more, tell my expecting clients more and more, because it's so hard to do. I at least just want to like, dink, like, yeah, let me just plant this little, just going to leave this right here.
Yes.
And if you forget it, that's totally fine. But it might sound a whole lot more, make a lot more sense after that baby comes out of you when you're like, oh yeah, I haven't done anything today.
And
That's exactly what
okay.
that's okay. It's what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be doing anything for a long time. So yeah, that's what I would say. Slow down.
I love it. I love it. That's a reminder I need for myself too.
Same. I know. I was like, this is so ironic that I'm peddling this.
I do that all the time. We need to take our own advice. It sounds really good when we say it out loud. We just have to internalize it.
100%.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. This was lovely. And I am very excited for my listeners to hear this.
Me too. This was really good. I've been a guest multiple times on podcasts before, but it's not, not every single one is like a match of, like personalities and vibes. And this one really was. And that's why it's been so easy to talk and share. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaila, for connecting with me. I had so much fun recording with you, and I hope my listeners can feel some of that joy as well and carry it with them throughout their day. I know I'll be checking out Parent Tell for sure, so I hope my listeners do as well. If you want to follow along with us on Quiet Connection, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection or at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can support our community by writing a review on your favorite podcast platform and sharing our episodes on social media. You could also consider becoming a Patreon member and gain access to things like bonus episodes, ad-free listening, and goodies in the mail once a month. If you'd like to share your personal journey, you can reach us through our website, quietconnectionpodcast.com, or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.